So another follower asked for me to review his chief gear and charms. And so I'm going to start with the chief gear. I apologize, I'm feeling a little under the weather, so my voice might be a little scratchy. So the first thing is I am very vocal about how I have been taught and have found success with my infantry chief gear being higher than my marksman and lancer gear. And here we can see that his jacket and pants are 2 stars, gold 2 stars. And his marksman gear is gold, no stars. And then his lancer gear, the hat is purple, T1 3 stars, and the compass is gold. So looking at his chief gear, his infantry gear is higher, his marksman is next, and his lancers are last. And this works perfectly. My assumption is that he has recently upgraded the compass, and he would be upgrading the hat soon so that it matches the compass. And then he's going to start over at the infantry jacket and pants and raise them up, and then raise the other 2 types of gear up as well. So with chief gear, and you know what, actually I'm going to switch over to mine. We're going to kind of talk about the chief gear
here without a trace.
So when we look at chief gear, we can see that increasing the chief gear, so it increases your attack and your defense, right? So for each piece of chief gear that when you increase it, you're increasing your attack and your defense. And so we want the infantry to have a really strong attack and defense. And the other thing that you might want to think about, and this is not to say that you're doing it wrong, it's just something to think about, is whenever you garrison a building, you're going to use 60% infantry and 40% lancers, probably. So you might want to consider doing chief gear lancers, then marksmen when it comes to chief gear. Now, obviously, marksmen are going to benefit from attack. And honestly, they'll benefit from defense as well, but they will definitely benefit from attack. So you going infantry, marksmen, lancers is perfectly fine. Again, it just kind of depends on what you want to prioritize and what you want to be best at. I prioritize attack. One of the reasons, it's not that I don't end up sitting in a turret, but I do not enjoy that. I don't enjoy the defensive aspects of it. Some of my fellow Alliance members, they don't mind getting in a turret and, kind of reinforcing themselves. That's not where I find joy in this game. I prefer attack. So I prioritize my infantry, and then my marksmen, and then my lancers. So I'm not going to say what you're doing is wrong, because you're doing what I do, but just something to think about as you do it. That, that's another option if you are someone who will be expected to garrison buildings and have that defensive aspect. then you might want to think about whether you should prioritize Lancers or not. So we're going to go back to your charms, and we can see your infantry charms. And I'm actually going to pull up the charm list because, Okay, so your infantry is at level 5 and everything else is at 4, right? So level 5, and then those are at level 4. And if we look at it, charms help with lethality and health. So obviously we want your infantry to have strong health, but we want our marksmen to have higher lethality. So we really want our marksmen to be killing machines. And so I would recommend that you increase your marksman lethality and then bring up your infantry. So you can see that my marksmen are mostly at 8. I did upgrade 1 to 9 recently, but they're mostly at 8. And then my infantry is at 7. And that's because I put a higher priority to increasing my marksman lethality. The other thing is infantry have a natural buff. If we look at the soldiers, so if we come here and we look at their natural stats, you can see that their health is a 25. Now I have Helios, so if you have 10s, their stats would be at 23. So their health is at 23, their attack is at 15, and their defense is at 23. So, and their lethality is at 15. So for your infantry, that's your base stats. Now if we come over and we look at marksmen base stats, their health is at 15, their attack is at 24. So you can see that infantry's health is better by like a score of 8 for infantry over marksmen, just because they are infantry and they are sturdier. I don't know if you play like Dungeons and Dragons, but it's like the difference between a bard and a ranger, like, or actually a ranger and a paladin is probably a more accurate, or an ogre is a more accurate reflection of the difference between the health between those two, right? So that's something to think about is, you're focusing more on the infantry for your charms, and I would suggest that you focus more and increase the marksman up to level 6 or 7 before you do any other charms for any of the other positions. This is also going to make a difference in your bear scores. It's going to increase your bear scores because you use more marksmen in your bear rally, and that's going to increase your scores if you increase your lethality for your marksmen. So you'll see some improvement in your bear scores as you increase your marksman lethality. And again, the infantry, they already have a natural health buff, so using the charms for their health buff is giving that to the marksman makes more sense, because you're making your marksman a little sturdier and your infantry are already sturdy. Now, you don't want to ignore the charms for your infantry, because you do want them to have lethality, you do want them to have health. You're just prioritizing marksmen to cover for the gap in their health that they have, their health stats, and to improve their lethality even more, because they are your killing machines. So I hope this was helpful, and this is honestly a pretty good start. I have the state blacked out, but he's in a state much younger than my current state, and so he's doing pretty well in building up his chief gear and his charms, and I think he's well on his way. I just would make those two changes. Focus more on the marksman, and then I say two changes. The second change is just like think about what your role is and what you want to be good at, and then decide whether your lancer gear, chief gear, should be higher than your marksman gear or not. And that's just, if you're defensive, mostly defensive, you might want to up your lancer gear and to at least keep it. It looks like you're trying to keep it even with your marksman, which is fine. Like that's actually probably a really good way to do it if you're not really attack or really defense focused. And then just keeping your infantry higher is the way to go. So overall, I think this really looks good. I would just make that change with the charms and then think about the role you want and kind of determine how you should move forward with your chief gear.